I never imagined my retirement years would involve sharing a house with a fox-eared girl from a distant world. My name is Marcus, and at 58, I believed I had experienced everything life could throw my way. 25 years in telecommunications, 2 grown kids, living their own lives, and a wife who left me for a yoga instructor named Brad. The classic American dream, just bent sideways. When the Vulpine initiative reached Earth, most people my age dismissed it as fiction. But I viewed the announcement differently. They needed human households for their cultural exchange effort and offered stipends that made my pension look laughably small. The Vulpine hailed from a place called Dara, orbiting twin suns about 40 light-years out. They resembled humans except for the fox ears and tails that marked their lineage. Something about convergent evolution and cosmic quirks that scientists debated endlessly. I didn't care about the theories. I just knew my 3-bedroom home felt far too empty, and my savings felt far too thin. Kira arrived on a Tuesday afternoon in September. She stood on my porch with 2 metallic cases and eyes the shade of autumn leaves. Her blonde hair caught the warm sunlight, and those twitchy fox ears flicked nervously. As she studied me, she wore a set of fitted armor that looked both ancient and impossibly high-tech, marked with glowing blue lines that pulsed like a soft heartbeat. "You are Marcus Chen?" she asked. Her English had a melodic accent I couldn't place. "That's me," I answered, suddenly aware of my faded jeans and coffee-spotted shirt. "You must be Kira. Come on in." She paused at the doorway. On my world, we observe a ritual. When entering a new home, we share breath to show trust. I blinked. "You want what now?" "It is symbolic," she said quickly, ears folding in embarrassment. "We simply stand close and breathe the same air for 3 heartbeats. It means we welcome one another as family." Something in her tone told me this mattered far more than she admitted. So I stepped closer, and we stood there, like 2 awkward statues on my porch, breathing in rhythm while Mrs. Patterson across the street probably called neighborhood watch. Kira's eyes closed, and when she opened them, they shimmered. "Thank you," she whispered. "You cannot know what this means." The first weeks were odd. Kira drifted through my house like a whisper, careful not to touch anything, eating tiny portions at dinner, always asking permission before using the remote or changing the thermostat. She worked remotely for some Vulpine Research Center, studying Earth's communication networks from the spare room that glowed with holographic displays nightly. I found her crying once at 2 in the morning. She sat alone in the kitchen with tea, tears slipping down her face as she stared at a projected photo, likely her family, back on the era. 2 older Vulpine with kind expressions and a younger male with her same blonde hair. "Can't sleep?" I asked softly. She jolted and wiped her face quickly. "I am sorry for waking you, Marcus. You didn't wake anything except maybe the refrigerator's dignity." I poured milk and sat beside her. "Wanna talk?" "My world is dying," she said at last. "Not suddenly, but certainly. Our star system is becoming unstable. In 3 generations, perhaps 4, the era will be unlivable. That is why we came to Earth, not just for exchange, but to learn whether our species could one day coexist." I sipped my milk and absorbed her words. "That's a heavy burden to carry. My father said I was assigned here because I understand people well." Her voice wavered. "But I feel lost here, Marcus. Everything is unfamiliar. The food tastes strange. The air feels thick. I miss our singing trees and the way our 3 moons move across the sky." Without thinking, I reached across the table and covered her hand. "I lost my wife 3 years ago, not to death, but to choices that felt close enough. I know what it is to wake up in a world That doesn't feel like home anymore. Kira turned her hand and squeezed mine. Her grip was unexpectedly strong. The matching program uses deep psychological profiles. They said you and I share compatible loneliness. I found that a strange trait to share. Maybe it's the perfect thing to share, I said. After that night, things changed.
Kira
Began cooking meals from her homeworld and teaching me the techniques. The dishes used aromatic herbs and proteins I couldn't pronounce, but her whole face lit up. When I said her spiced grain mix tasted like my grandmother's pilaf, she laughed more, her tail flicking when she found something amusing on Earth TV. I introduced her to classic westerns and she became obsessed with cowboys. They resemble our wandering clans, she said while watching John Wayne cross Monument Valley. Honorable, self-reliant, bound by old codes. I taught her chess. She taught me a Vulpine strategy game with colored stones and spatial patterns that fried my brain. We settled into a rhythm. Morning coffee, evening walks where she asked endless questions about Earth, late-night talks about everything and nothing. Mrs. Patterson eventually stopped giving us suspicious looks and started dropping off casseroles. 4 months into the program, Kira returned from a mandatory embassy check-in looking shaken. She found me in the garage fighting with my old lawnmower and stood silent, ears drooping. What happened? I asked, setting the wrench aside. They want to reassign me to another host, she whispered. Someone younger, more socially active. They say I have bonded too strongly with a single person. That is not what they intended. Something cold settled in my chest. What do you want?
She
Looked at me with those autumn leaf eyes. On Thera, we have a concept called Kthira. It means soul mirror, one who reflects your true self back at you, who sees you completely and still chooses to stay. It is rarer than romance, deeper than friendship. She stepped forward. Marcus, you are my Kir. In 4 months, you have become more family to me than anyone besides my blood. I want to remain here. Then stay. I said firmly. I'll talk to whoever I need to. Write letters, make calls, stand outside the embassy with a sign. If that's what it takes. A radiant smile spread across her face like sunrise. You would do that? Kira, you turned this empty house into home again. You laugh at my awful jokes and listen to me talk about my kids for 3 hours last week without complaining. If you're my soul mirror, I'm not letting you go. She closed the distance and hugged me with surprising force, her fox ears brushing my chin as her tears soaked into my shirt. Thank you, Kira, she whispered. We fought the system together and triumphed. The program coordinators eventually admitted that deep bonding with a single host family produced valuable insight into long-term human-vulpine relationships.